if everyone is giving their kid coaching advice that, does not fall in line with the coach, and if you want to know what the coach is coaching, ask them. But if all the parents are doing that, then you don't have a coach.
This is the Coaching Life Podcast.
Not live.
We're a little flustered today. We were hoping to bring you something very special for our 150th episode of the Coaching Life Podcast. Congratulations.
5 years.
Where's our
Yeah, that's not
nope,
it.
that's not it. I was looking for the
I mean, there's 7 more buttons there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Diet Dr. Kelp?
When you use a podcast studio that hundreds of other people use, you just never know what you're going to find on these buttons.
I'm a star!
You just never know what you're going to find.
What the fuck?
Oh, see, we need both buttons.
What the
Oh, boy.
It's a good thing we didn't do the video today.
Yeah. we probably wouldn't have got to this point if we were doing the video, but
That's true.
yeah, thanks everybody
A
for
little troubleshooting.
sticking with us through 149 episodes.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I just now got on the site and was looking at some of our reviews. Yeah, I did see that 2-star that somebody gave us out there, whoever that was.
Yeah, must have been someone from Team Pat.
I doubt that. Very seriously.
No,
Very
definitely not.
It was probably my mother when we
2
talked
stars.
about something that I did.
Something made her mad. That's right.
Oh, shoot. Coach, good to be here with you today.
Yes, sir. It is. I was thinking 150 episodes. We yesterday did a search on Chartable, one of the podcast stats apps, and our show showed up as in the genre of sports. It showed up as
For some reason, I'm thinking 47.
It was, yeah. Number 47 in the genre of sports on the charts, the all-time, like the top, we're talking about all the podcasts.
Everything
In the country of South Africa.
in the history of podcasts.
Yeah, I don't know
Is
what's
that what
going
that
on
is?
there. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't, that's bizarre to me. We got a lot of bots maybe in South Africa that are downloading our podcast. Do you know how that works? How do bots work?
For podcasts, I would have no idea
Yeah.
why they would be out there other than just to, I don't know. I don't know how they work.
I don't know. We have a following in South Africa.
It might be artificial intelligence, but it's a following.
There you go.
And we're in the top 47 of the all-time podcasts.
All sports podcasts.
So at least-
there's 50 sports podcasts at least, right, in South Africa.
But there's at least 47. We know that.
Yeah.
Shoot. What's new? Is there anything new to talk about?
Well, today, our topic today is coming to us from a listener. And
Yeah, we
sometimes
like when people do this.
Yeah, it's not the first time it's happened, but it's always good to get emails or messages. And you can, if anybody else, if there's something people want us to talk about, I guess we should tell them how to get a hold of us. I mean, people who have our numbers, just text us. If
Right.
you don't have our numbers, you can find us on all the social medias. You can also find our show on Twitter or X. X. Just do a search for the Coaching Life Podcast, and you can just send us a message through that way. Or if you're friends with Pat or I on Facebook, you can send us a message. That's how this particular message came to me last week, and I'll read some of it here. Leaving off names and geographical location of where the message came from, because we have listeners all the way in South Africa.
Right.
This is not a listener from South Africa, but anyway. It is a situation that I think we have mentioned before. It's a
Sure.
topic that we've talked about before. We've not dedicated an entire episode to this, so it might be just good to have a conversation and just see what comes out of it.
And in the context, I think, of the
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah. So it was basically brought to us, hey, I thought it might be a good idea or something good for you guys to discuss in an upcoming podcast if you have not done so yet. And here's the question. I wonder at what point does a coach need to say something to the parents of a player about them being a distraction on their player, on their own child?
Right.
And the context of that is, let's say, you're a coach and you have been teaching and coaching up a player, one of your players, and that player has been struggling perhaps. We're in the context of baseball, so maybe the player's been struggling at the plate.
Right.
They've been struggling with their hitting.
That's a big one.
And it happens, it happens every year. Everybody goes through ups and downs with their hitting.
Absolutely.
And everybody has ideas for how to fix that, right? Coaches have an idea, parents have an idea, the personal instructor has an idea.
Right.
So this extends beyond, parents. At what point, the question is, how does a coach handle the extra coaching that one of your players gets on your team, particularly when that extra coaching may be in conflict with what you're trying to teach the player to do,
right,
and help the player?
Yeah, really difficult situation. I think it's there's not a easy answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, the question basically is, hey, at what point does the coach go to the parents and say, hey, look, we want your child to be as successful, as you want him to be.
Why would a coach want that? Because that's their job. They want the team to be successful.
The team is,
so for the team
we want to win.
Successful, we want the individual to be successful.
Right. When your child is successful, our team is successful.
Sure, absolutely.
And so sometimes, the question comes at us with, sometimes it's about making comments during the game, coaching from the stands, coaching from the bleachers, coaching from the sidelines, and sometimes it's, basically coaching from home, which is a good thing, right? You want players
absolutely.
to work on their game at home, but not in conjunction, like doing it in conflict with maybe a mechanical adjustment that you've made and you're seeing some success in practice, and then they go back home and they're taught something different. And some of the tension here is, it puts a player in a tough spot because
Absolutely.
the player doesn't want to say to mom or dad, whoever's teaching them at home, my coach thinks you're wrong because he teaches me this way. And then the player probably doesn't also want to say the other direction as well. Well, what does that do to the player? Well, you're telling me to do something different. So does that mean my coach is wrong?
Yeah. And I'd say this, a lot of times when you're talking about, changing a small mechanic in a swing or a throw or something like that, and sometimes it doesn't matter about the mechanic at all.
Yeah.
It matters that the player recognizes that they've changed something, and because they've changed something, they have a little bit more confidence. They have a little bit more hope that that they're going to succeed the next time that they go out and do whatever they're doing. And if there's a conflict in the information that they're receiving from coach, from hitting instructor, from the parent, that confidence isn't there.
Yeah.
And that could hurt them more than anything.
Yeah.
It's a delicate issue, really. I mean, we could almost talk. There's almost a conversation to be had, directly to the parent, directly to the coach, and directly to the instructor, because like it or not, all three of those roles, all three of those people are going to have an impact on the way the athlete performs. And the best situation that you could be in is that all three of those are working in the same direction.
They're moving in the same direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, that would be, but it's hard to get there.
When the reality is all three of those entities want the same goal.
Yes.
They all want the same goal. They
Right.
want the child to be successful. They want the player to be successful. There may be some other goals inside of that are different, that differ among them, for one reason or another. I don't know. I mean, like
on different levels.
For example,
maybe.
The coach may want the child to be successul because he knows it's going to help the team be successful and win. The parent may want the child to be successful because he knows if my child is successful, that means he's going to be in the lineup more. He's going to play more, right?
Well, yeah,
there might be different motivations and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Like as a coach, you and I don't. I mean, we don't. I don't want to sound crass when I say this, but like we don't care who's in the lineup.
No.
Like, I don't care. Like it's not that we're not
Not at the
relational
top
with
level, right?
Yeah.
You
The one-
go down an order of
Exactly.
what's important.
Yeah.
And the individual is below the importance
Yeah,
of the team.
exactly.
You still care.
And that's
You still-
not the case for my child.
correct.
That individual is more important than the team
Yeah.
when I'm the parent.
Yeah.
And so there is a different motivation for wanting that child to succeed if you're a parent versus if you're a coach. And I think that's hopefully that's helpful for a parent to hear. Like, if you're a parent and you're listening, you're like, you understand when we're making out a lineup or decisions for our team, we're going to play your child because we feel that your child can help the team win today.
Right.
And we're not going to play your child if we don't feel like your child is the best choice to help the team win today.
Right.
And I know that hurts,
It does.
but
Yeah.
that's what every coach is doing. It's what every coach is doing.
Sure.
And so anyway, we talk about that particular issue all the time, but and that sort of came out as a tangent from the different motive, the point about everybody having the same goal, and that is we want the child to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we live in a day and age right now where recreational leagues they're on par with, we have a rec league in the Meigs County area that is not, it's kind of like a hybrid. Like, kids can go sign up as individuals, but also teams bring these teams that are handpicked. So I think a lot of times what happens is a coach will combine players from multiple teams. And what they don't recognize is when they do that, you're missing a relationship element to that team that is, it's overlooked because if you have that's why high school baseball is so great, or high school sports in general, is because everybody knows each other. You're playing for each other. You're playing for your school. There's camaraderie. There's relationship value there. That gets splintered when you start picking and choosing. When you start making quote unquote all-star teams for
Sure.
by definition, and you lose some of that relationship value. So it's hard in situations. It makes it more difficult in situations like these to have conversations with parents.
Yeah.
It also makes it unknown to these parents that are coming in, to these players. You basically have to recreate the culture that you want as a coach in a very short span of time, and with a limited number of players that know what you expect. It's very difficult. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge, I think.
It is.
So when someone says, at what point do you go and have a conversation with the parent about, what's going on with their kid? I don't know, because we're talking about a season, that is 12 weeks long. And then, who knows, this team may never be together again. So it's a difficult conversation is what I'm saying, is what I'm getting at.
It is.
Anytime you bring together a bunch of kids that aren't used to playing with each other, a bunch of people that aren't used to, sitting in the crowd with one another, it brings in some different elements that a lot of times, baseball coaches just don't think about because it's not something they normally have to think about.
Well, one thing I'll say about baseball coaches, and I'm sure that it's not just a baseball thing, it's probably across the board, but again, that's our world. This is a pretty common situation. So, for people listening that maybe aren't coaches, this happens a lot, and we actually do talk about this a lot.
No, absolutely.
The fact that, hey, we only get these kids for a couple hours a day, when it comes to instruction, and we're doing our best to try to help them be successful, and take where they are and make the necessary adjustments to help them get better.
Right.
And so one of the variables I think that sometimes enters into a situation like this is there's a feeling that, whether it's true or not, there's this hint that if I as a dad got to coach you more when you get home. And I don't ask you as a player, what has coach been showing you? And let's work on that. But I just take you and say, okay, you've been struggling at the plate. Let's go out back and let's work. And we just start in. And your child maybe goes, okay, well, coach told me to do this, right? What do you do at that point? Like, do you go, okay, let's try that then. Let's see if that, has that been working? Has that been, did that work for you in practice? Or, or do you think, does it feel like that's, like you're moving in the right direction? Because it's not going to be, nothing's going to be instant. Nothing's instant when it comes to hitting, for example.
You're right.
But I guess what I'm saying is that there is this feeling when there is additional coaching outside of what the player's getting with his team, and that coaching is happening in a vacuum. It's not happening in conjunction with, like you're not communicating, hey, tell me what you're learning in practice. Tell me how things are going there, and let's work on that here. You're just doing your own thing. It gives this vibe like you don't trust the coach.
Absolutely.
Like you don't or you don't agree with the coach, or you don't respect the coach. And you know what? Those things might be true. They might be true.
Yeah.
And I guess I would ask, well, why is your kid playing on the team then?
Right.
I mean, if that's the case, if you don't trust a coach, or if you don't trust that the coach knows what they're doing, there's an issue there too. But
yeah, you just that was a mouthful. What you just said there.
Because I keep opening up a bigger can here.
It's a big can.
Because sometimes you don't trust the coach, you don't agree with the coach, and you're wrong.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you might be right.
Right.
But sometimes oh man, this is a tough topic.
Yeah, I think I would speak to the coach and the parent in this case in saying that hitting or any type of mechanical instruction for sure is a very difficult thing. As you mentioned, as coaches, we have a limited amount of time with our players. If you're going to change a habit in a swing or any habit, any physical movement that you have that you are able to, that you repeat, any type of movement, if you're going to change that to something else, you have to have an insane amount of repetitions to modify that movement to the way that you want to move.
To become a new habit.
Yes. And okay, so there's the first thing. You're talking about thousands of repetitions to change that. Okay, so that's one. So to the parent, when you're, if you're out there saying you're dropping your shoulder, during an at bat, you're absolutely positively having no positive impact on that at bat, and you're most likely having a negative impact. So any type of instruction like that,
and we want the shoulder to drop in the swing.
we
can get into that too. I guess the shoulder has to drop.
Yeah, right. It tilts, right?
It tilts.
You tilt. So, but that was just an example. That's something that you hear about.
Right.
But it's also true, I would say that to coaches, that be very careful about what you're changing on your hit or swing, because a lot of times the biggest improvement you can make, the biggest help you can give them doesn't start with their mechanics. I have seen, and we've talked about this before, your approach, your mental approach compared to your physical approach. You can have the perfect swing, but if you have the worst approach, you're not going to be successful. You could have a bad swing. I've seen players that had bad swings, but have a great approach.
They compete.
That's right.
If you can compete with a bad swing, you can be more successful than a person with a good swing that doesn't compete in the box. And those are the things that sometimes we overlook when it comes to helping a player make the adjustment that they need. Like like when we're saying make an adjustment, I think we immediately go to mechanics. Well, what's the make an adjustment. What's a mechanical adjustment? And so sometimes we go to we will go to buzzwords.
Yes.
Keep your hands back, stay back. Well, no, not really. Be on time, right? Yeah. Sometimes, there's just not there's an endless amount of things that you can say. And sometimes, a lot of the time, it's not mechanical, like you said.
Right. And here's the thing. Once you put in enough reps to change that habit, it's very, very easy to develop another bad habit.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about before not having enough time as high school coaches, and definitely, travel ball coaches, rec coaches, they just don't have enough time to sit down with every single player that they have and put in the effort that is needed to change, a mechanical flaw or, to improve a swing or a throw or anything like that of that nature.
Which means we want the player to practice outside of team practice.
We do. So that
we want them to work with you, mom and dad. We want them to work with personal instructors. It's not that coaches are against that.
Right. But I think there was a time not too long ago where, coaches at our level would kind of scoff at the idea of a kid going and seeing a hitting instructor because I thought, well, why do you need to go see a hitting instructor? I'm your coach. You got to listen to me.
Yeah, that's probably more of an ego. What do you think?
Right.
Probably
and I would stay away from that. Speaking to the coach, I would stay away from that. Perspective. Yeah. Like I encourage our kids.
What's
to get
the
a hitting
alternative?
instructor.
You going to put in the time with him that he needs with every single one of your players? I'm talking to head coach,
yeah,
right?
And by the way, that seems great. And can you do it? Maybe, but you're sacrificing something. You're going to spend time, not doing other things if you do that.
Yeah, kids have got to work on individual skills and their own individual aspects of their game to make themselves better. This even includes things like strength and conditioning, right?
Sure.
You can't do it all as a coach either. And so those ones who do those things on their own, in addition to coming to team events and team practices, those are going to be the ones that are going to be more successful. And so we know that, and we want that. We want them to practice at home. Well, I guess what I would say is it would be really great if we get the child moving in the same direction.
Yes.
Rather than I grab a hold of this arm and pull this direction, and mom and dad grabs a hold of that arm and pulls that direction. And oh, by the way, the hitting instructor or the individual instructor or their strength trainer grabs a hold of that leg and pulls a different direction. Now we got the child, we're pulling like a rag doll in 4 different directions, right?
Right.
And that's confusing to the kid.
Yeah.
I had a player. I've had this happen. You're about to say something, but I can give a story and an example.
I got you. Go ahead.
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah,
okay.
you go.
So I've had a player where this has happened before, and this isn't. I mean, I could give this like this will be a specific example, but I could give this example any year. It happens all the time. However many years I've coached, this happens a lot. I've had a player who's really struggling at the plate, for example, really struggling because that's a common issue, right? And we were giving, when I say we, I'm talking about his coaches, his high school coaches had given him some simple adjustments that would have minimized some of the negative he had some negative movements in his swing. So this was a mechanical thing.
So you're going to simplify the swing.
Going to simplify it a little bit. Essentially, we were widening him, basically, saying, get rid of the stride and, and do this. I mean, it's not the best for everybody, but for the things that we saw this particular player doing, which was lunging out in front of everything, and
so this swing looked a lot different when he was listening to your coaching.
And it felt a lot different, right? And at first, it doesn't feel good because you're not used to that. Yeah. And so we had him working on the tee. We had him working in the cage. Of course, at first it's not that great. There's not a lot of power there. It's a whole different feel. But small steps, baby steps, right? Let's just keep at it. Right? This isn't gonna, it's not a magic pill. You're not gonna be fixed tomorrow. But like you said, rep after rep after rep, consistency, small steps. Consistency is the key to excellence. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep going. It's a long game. Keep going in the same direction, right? So what would happen is, because mom and dad, people at home, family, everybody's feeling the same thing. The kid's struggling.
Yeah.
He's struggling. And when he's struggling, he's not playing as much. And so I got to help him too. Okay. And so gets home, wants to work on the swing, and he comes back to practice. Same old bad habits, same old things, right? And so we talked and said, well, what about the things we worked on? The tools we gave you to work on. Well, it just didn't feel right. And so, my dad helped me, and I think I got it. I think I got it. And so I'm like, okay. I mean, I wasn't going to go again. That's the catch-22. Like, I don't want to say, well, okay, your dad helped you, but it's the opposite of what we just showed you to do, and basically it's back to where you were to begin with. Okay, and you didn't just need more practice of the poor way to swing. You needed something different, and that's why we gave you something different. But you don't want to say, sorry, man, your dad's wrong, and you should have listened to us.
Yeah, or you disagree. Yeah, well, because that's going to have the same, because that's the conflict that we're talking about, and that's going to put doubt into that hitter's mind, that player's mind. Yeah. So then they're behind. They're behind when they get up to the plate.
Well,
anyway.
and they're offended that because everybody takes things personal. It's not personal, but everybody's like, oh, you're saying my dad doesn't know what he's talking about? No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just, but we didn't say any of that.
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, let's. But here's what happens though. And I think parents need to understand this. The reason why there needs to be consistency in our coaching between what the coaches are teaching, what you're and we can help each other. Like, we could be more open to helping you understand what we're teaching the player, and you can come to us when you know that you want to practice at home and say, hey, show us what kind of adjustments you've made with them. Because when the player comes back to us and refuses to make those adjustments because you told him to do it this way, that communicates to the coach that your child doesn't receive coaching.
Yeah,
he's not a coachable player.
Not on board.
And what I mean by that is, like, we wouldn't call your child an uncoachable player, but what I mean by that, the way that works itself out pragmatically, is when the child's struggling again, why would we put more time and effort into helping him when it doesn't make any difference? He's not going to do it.
Yeah, at that point, we
got other kids we got to work with.
Right. Yeah. At that point. That's, I guess, those types of situations fall into the, why isn't my kid playing more? What does he have to do? What does she have to do to get more playing time?
Yeah, we tried that.
Right.
Yeah, we answered that.
Point. Right. I think, again, I think we're talking about relationships here. So, to those, parents out there that have this, or, listen, done it, raise my hand, I done it. Got a lot better at it over the last few years. But if you have that desire and you're seeing something that your kid's doing that you think, something could fix, before you talk to that kid about that, before you talk to your son or daughter about the mechanical correction or whatever they're doing, reach out to the coach and ask them what he or she thinks is going on, and have a conversation with that coach so that you can be, on the same page.
Yeah.
That's good. That alone will help your player. Oh, right off the top.
It eases the player's mind. Go back to the mental aspect of it. The player goes, the player's getting two different sets of coaching, so it puts doubt in the player's mind then.
Absolutely.
About who's right, which one of these is going to work. And the player wants more than anything for you, mom or dad, to be right. And so they're going to follow what you say. And that's fine. If you're like, well, yeah, I'm right. Right? We're right.
Right.
But when that player gets back to the team and coach is coaching them up on other things,
then what? Right.
Yeah. Maybe there's doubt. Coach was wrong about my swing. What else is he wrong about?
Yeah.
And it creates a mentality of distrust. And whenever there's distrust in any relationship, and this includes teams are built on relationships.
Absolutely.
You can't win.
No,
you can't. The team will, the chemistry of the team will not be good.
Yeah, I try. Any time there's a question of can I do it this way or that way, to my best ability. When only when I think it's absolutely detrimental to a situation. How to come off second base on a double play ball for the second baseman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, coach, I like to do it this way. Well, okay, if you like to do it that way, I'm okay with it. Here's reasons why you might want to do it this way. But if you're good with that and it's working, okay, I'm good with it.
And we're able to get the out.
Right.
If you're good with
If
that,
it's working.
if that feels, if it's working, yeah. If you can't,
Right.
yeah, if you can't get the ball over to first base in 1.5 seconds, in that direction, in that whatever,
Right,
you should be getting
absolutely,
whatever.
yeah. So you try that's empowering your players. You know what I mean? To develop that trust that you're talking about. One thing that I don't guess I thought it wouldn't happen, but it happens. It has happened a lot more, I guess, in volume than I thought. From the first year that I've coached, that I put together my coach's manual,
Yeah.
to now going into my third year, there's always things that I'm adding to that.
Yep.
So that I want my players and parents to know ahead of time.
Right.
So I think aside from, knowing when that point is to go talk to a parent about behavior, through your experience as a coach, try to talk to your parents about these things initially.
Proactively.
Yes.
Yeah, beforehand. So when this situation arises, like you don't even have to say if, because it's going to arise.
Yeah, and
when this situation arises,
we want it to arise, really.
This is the best way for everyone to. This is the best process, I guess I should say, the best procedure for this. Your child's going to struggle at some point. You're going to want to help them at home. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. We want that. Let's just work together with it.
Yep.
Let's you and me, right? Mom, dad, coach, let's work together with it. And we might be in a different day where you and I are saying we want that as coaches, because like you said, there's maybe more old school thinking is, nope, there's a separation between coach and parent. I don't want to, let me coach, you be the parent. And there are people who coach that way.
Yeah.
I guess you and I are saying our advice would be, let's work together on it because we want what's best for your kid.
Well, if this is going to come up,
yeah,
as a coach, I want to handle it the best way the way that allows that player to perform at his or her best.
Yeah, and that's you and me. But we have parents listening right now who are probably thinking, well, it's easy to say, Chris and Pat, but I tried to go to my coach, my kid's coach, and they don't want to talk to me. They're like, you're the parent, I'm the coach. Okay, well, that's a bad coach. Sorry. Sorry your kid's got a bad coach. It's just something you and I would disagree with that coach about.
Yeah.
Is because here's the thing, coach, it's going to come up. It's going to happen. And so you can either find a way to work together with those parents to help that child get moving in the same direction that you want them to go. Even if you and the parent disagree, and you're going to disagree, it's still going to be helpful that for them to know what it is that you're teaching the child and why you're teaching the child that, because maybe, just maybe, they'll bend a little bit in your direction. Maybe you need to bend a little bit in their direction.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I would say that. As a coach, you need to be aware of the possibility that you may need to take a step back. But
there are a lot of things too that have changed, and I think sometimes this kind of thing happens whenever there are issues of the games that we play that are different than they were when you and I played, or when mom and dad played, or
Oh, right.
Like take catching for example, right? A lot about catching has changed. A lot about the mechanics of catching. You would never put one knee down 10 years ago, and framing has changed. When Brock was coming through high school, it was big to stick the pitch. Right. Stick the pitch. Now, my gosh, the catcher's moves like it would have been ridiculous to me, and it was ridiculous to me when I first saw these catchers putting their mitt on the ground and bringing it up, or working way outside the zone and catching it, bringing it back into the zone. And I remember thinking to myself, umpires are going to hate you for that. And I remember seeing Brock's college team doing. I'm like, and he's like, yeah, this is what they're teaching. This is what we're doing. I'm like, so all this time we spent on you getting your thumb underneath there and just sticking that pitch. He's like, well, here's the thing. you can steal strikes that way.
Yes.
How often is that happening right now in the major? This is one of the big issues with Major League Baseball is all the strikes that are being stolen by these catchers by the way that they're framing.
They got
these
that
pitches.
box up there, the digital box, and all these umpires are looking horrible because watch where the catcher's
crazy.
glove is. Watch how the catcher's glove's moving
where
on
they
those calls.
actually catch the ball, where the ball actually sticks the mitt to where it is just a split second later. That mitt will be closer to the middle. There's a small little circle where that mitt ends up on every pitch, regardless of where that pitch actually hits the strike zone or out of the strike zone. And that's considered good today. Good catching. It'd have been horrible catching 15 years ago.
It's probably the primary responsibility of a catcher now. Their primary use.
When you're working on receiving?
Yeah. That's what's important.
Yeah.
It's not even blocking. Blocking is almost an afterthought.
Well, and
now.
blocking is it's basically a lot of blocking is however you can get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's one. How in the world do you block with one knee down? Just however you can.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Because receiving has become.
But there was so much technique, not long ago for being soft like a pillow and receiving has become a lot more important.
But to your point, put that into a game situation. A catcher's in there, moving their glove, and the parent's like, because the parent
moving your glove.
The parent has caught. The parent's been taught how to teach.
And I'm telling you that I've been there.
Yeah.
I did the same. As a parent, I've been there.
Yeah.
I'm like, Brox, you're moving your mitt way too much. He goes, oh, that's actually what we're supposed to be doing. Like, and so then I have that parent thing, right? Like, what? And then he explained it to me. So I'm just like, so explain to me. And so then what did I do? I went back and I got on my computer and started researching and seeing, is this really? And sure enough,
I was going to say,
that's the direction the game was going.
One of the points I really wanted to make today was if you are making changes as a coach, recommending changes, suggesting changes as a coach, as a player, do yourself a favor, do your player a favor, and put a little bit extra work into some research. Don't just,
cite your source.
Yeah, verify what you're thinking. Verify what your experience has brought to you. Know that you're telling them the right thing, so that if a conversation does come up, you can say, well, this is why, this is why I think this way, so on and so forth. It's very important to do that. And even I would say that we've talked about this before, and good instructors will work with a player for a little while. I wouldn't say this makes someone a good instructor, but a lot of good instructors will work with a player for a certain amount of time and then say, all right, you're done. And what do you mean? I'm like, well, I've worked with you a lot. You got you to this point. Now I want you to go, see other instructors, get their opinion. And there's a lot
You've graduated from me.
And there's different relationships about that too. But
sure.
Sometimes they stick around forever, and they're always there to talk to you. But whatever the case, the point is, there's all this information out there that you can use. You got to be able to discern which information is going to help you the most. So if you're in a situation like this, whether you're the coach, the parent, make sure you're putting that time in to do the research to support what you're actually trying to teach the kid.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say this too, Coach. If you're I think there's 2 points. There's 2 elements to this situation of when a parent is teaching the kid something, doing something during a game, and are they being distracting to the kid and possibly even being distracting to the team by saying what they're saying during a game.
Oh, during the game.
I think, during the game. If it's happening there, you probably want to have that conversation pretty quickly and stay out of the realm of this is why we teach this. This is, what you're teaching is we don't believe it because of this. It just comes down to the fact of, listen, we don't think you're creating an environment that is allowing your kid or our team to perform at their best. So we want to eliminate that if we can, and have that conversation as respectfully as possible. But
one of the hardest things, finish your thought.
Well, it's a long thought. Go ahead. Oh.
One of the hardest things to do when you are at the ballpark watching your son or daughter play is to just watch them play.
You know what I started doing?
It's one of the hardest things to do.
You know what I started doing? Sitting far away. Like as far away as possible.
Out by yourself somewhere.
Not necessarily by myself. I mean, I wouldn't mind people coming, but
Oh, as far away from the game.
yeah.
So you can't, so
'Cause if you
even
sit-
if I tried to say something, you can't hear me.
Right. There's no point.
You're out there with binoculars.
Is
Is that my son that just intercepted that pass?
General Hardinge Park has this big hill.
Yeah,
And
that's where all the coaches went when they got tossed from the game.
right, I'll just go to the hill.
Just walk up the hill. Yep.
The good umpires, though, wouldn't let them sit there. They'd make them leave the area.
Yeah, because years ago I was coaching with Herb Scharfenacre, a Pony League team, and Herb got tossed by Leonard King. Remember Leonard umpired a lot of games down there? Remember old Leonard? Sandy King she was the head custodian out at Eastern High School for
Yeah,
years.
I know Leonard.
And Leonard tossed Herb. It was hilarious, but he tossed him. Herb, it was a tournament game, semifinal tournament game. Herb goes up that hill, and so I'm now taking over the reins, right, as coach. I'm still in college, and Gary Stanley's on the mound, and all of a sudden, my right fielder's out there waving his hand. Ryan Rowe, he's out there waving his hand. Hey, Chris, Herb up there said to take Gary out. Leonard pulled that mask off and he started walking toward right field. He said, he can't do that. Get out. I kicked him out.
He's got to leave the area.
He relayed the message in.
Some people would always say, walk across the street and be like, I'll just stand here.
Yeah, I'm off the premises.
Right. Nah, you can't do that technically. So,
Yeah.
that's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean it is. To go back to your point, you go far away because you as a dad are tempted to want to coach during the game.
Yep.
And we all are. I've seen the best people do it, and it's I'm not long ago. I went and watched a fall ball game. I'm watching a fall ball game. These young kids, and who's there watching fall games? Just parents,
Right.
There's not fans there, right? And some of the best people, well-meaning people, it's just impossible. It's almost impossible to not want to say something when you see that your child needs to make an adjustment in the middle of an at-bat or while they're pitching. And I found myself as one watching the game, a bunch of, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. None of those are my kids. I had zero temptation, zero temptation to want to shout out coaching advice. And you know why? Because those kids actually had coaches. They had coaches over there in their dugout who probably knew them better than I did.
Yeah.
Right? Knew their team better than I did. And like, they'll figure it out. They'll get it. They'll talk to them. And if they don't, oh well. Coach didn't do his job. I mean, if they don't, they don't. But it's still not my job.
Yeah. You're right.
It's just it is fascinating to me how much different it feels, how unimportant it seems when it's not your child.
Really good practice.
It is.
Really good practice.
It is. Yeah, I mean, we don't, I'd say most people don't just go to random Little League games and watch them unless you have some vested interest, right? A child, a nephew, a grandson, but we should try that because it would be good. It's a sobering thing to go and get the feel, to get what it feels like to just watch kids play without feeling the need to coach them up.
Right.
Like I would ask, why as a parent do you feel the need to coach your kid up? Because you want them to do really well. I mean, that's why you love them and you want them. You don't want to see the hurt that they feel when they mess up, when they fail, and that it's like, what kind of advice do we how do you? I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying this. I'm saying this stuff out loud, and I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's a bad thing that we have that feeling for our kids.
No, not at all. That's not at all what I'm saying. Yeah, it's great. It's an awesome thing to see how much these parents love their kids.
I know from experience by, letting, whatever happened in a game go until the next day, you don't have near as much to say.
setting yourself a rule, like just being legalistic about it. This is my rule in my family.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe that's a good
just talk about it another day, talk about it a different time, because if it's something that important, then you'll remember.
Yeah.
Or like I said, we've talked about in the past, write it down. Keep notes so you go back and have that conversation.
Say, hey, we've got a standing meeting on a weekly basis. With I'm gonna take you out for breakfast, son, daughter, and our weekly meeting is just going to be to talk about
Yeah,
baseball.
you could do that.
Talk about your sport, right?
That'd be a bad idea.
And,
right.
and so you keep those notes, and most likely, what you felt like you needed to say in the middle of the game, and therefore you wrote it down or you logged it in the back of your mind, probably isn't going to feel like that big of a deal.
And try to
in
ask
that
questions
breakfast meeting.
instead of making statements. Try to ask questions because you want to know what the player's thinking and seeing at the same time.
Sure.
To find out what you're seeing.
Well, what do you think?
I think we solved the problem. I think the key is to we're all on the same side. From a coaching perspective, if it gets to the point where it is distracting, it is, in your opinion, being detrimental to the player, then it's
have
time.
A conversation.
It's time to have a conversation.
Yeah.
But when you have that conversation, remember that you're on the same team.
Yes.
You want the same thing, and it's not a versus. It's not a battle. You're trying to help each other.
I hate that.
Conversation
I feel like
doesn't equal
sometimes
conflict.
a lot of our podcasts come across as coaches versus parent, right? And that's not our intention at all.
No, absolutely not.
Ever.
No, and the same true, from a parent's perspective. Just think, what you're doing isn't, by nature wrong, but just think if everyone was doing it. And not even during a game, but if everyone is giving their kid coaching advice that does not fall in line with the coach, and if you want to know what the coach is coaching, ask them. But if the coach, if all the parents are doing that, then you don't have a coach.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself in that situation where you think, well, I just have to because I know better than the coach, you should probably look into coaching. Really?
Yeah, you should.
And if you can't, if you can't put the time into it, which a lot of people cannot, it's not a job that's that everyone is available to do. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of coaches out there that have jobs and lives that don't allow them to coach. Good coaches, they're out there.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself doing that and wanting to do that, then that's probably a direction you want to go. But understand that by doing it, you could be creating internal strife, not just for your player, but for the entire team. And we don't want to do that as parents either. We want to help our kids, but we want to be a detriment to our kids and to the rest of the players around them.
Yeah, I would say that as a simplified answer, from a parent's perspective, right? A simplified answer, we know you want to help your kids. We know you want to help them be successful. The best way to do that is going to be to give them the reps that they need, not the coaching that they need.
Yeah.
And if you want to give them the coaching, then make sure that, like you said, you're you communicate with the do it in conjunction with what is being taught to the child while he's with his team, because otherwise just put the ball on the tee. Just say, hey, let's go out and throw. Let's go out and throw. Let's go out and hit. Let's go out and get some swings. Let's go, or let your child say that to you. And when he or she does, you just go do that. There's a difference between going out and working with them versus coaching them while you're doing it. Sure. And it's hard. It's really hard to not want to coach them. But I would say just be reminded, allow a little reminder to pop up in your head of, I wonder what his coaches would say about this. I wonder what. Well, let me ask him. Hey, have you and your coach worked on this together? I see that you're landing pretty heavy. On your front foot, collapsing your front leg when you're pitching. What has your coach said about that? And they go from there.
Sure.
That's a great way to start, right?
Absolutely.
But to completely disregard or not even consider what the coach says, well, it's disrespectful, but
It is. It's not a good thing to
It's
do.
not
It's
a
not a
good
good
thing.
habit.
Yeah. But it's not gonna be helpful to the child, and you want to be helpful to your child.
Could be, but in the long run, it's not. you're creating a habit.
Could
that
be
isn't-
helpful that day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
But it's not going to be helpful in the long, like you said, over the course of his or her season, in the context of the team, the relationship that he has with this team. That there's a lot of problems that could come up.
Right.
And the fact that there a lot of problems come up is the very reason why that topic was brought to us today by our listeners. So,
Right.
thank you very much.
I hope we helped.
Yeah. So again, if you want us to talk about something specific that you're dealing with your team or your kids or whatever, Twitter is at The Coaching Life, at The Coaching Life, not just at Coaching Life, at the. Whenever you're searching for us, always put the in front of it. Because when you put The Coaching Life, because we are like the Ohio State, right?
Right.
So when you put the in front of The Coaching Life podcast, ours will show up probably in your top 4 or 5 searches in your podcast search engine. And that's something that's been happening here lately. Our podcast is growing. We're excited about that. We are number 47 in South Africa. Once again, we will keep saying that. Thank you to South Africa for the support. And anybody else wants to, what do we say, like and subscribe?
Yes.
Hit that subscribe button in your podcast.
And now review, because I
Yes.
like reading those reviews.
When you go to the review, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, which I think 65% of our listeners listen with Apple Podcast app, if you're using that app, shoot us a review. I mean, click one of the stars on there and put a review on there.
Sure.
Let us know what we could do better in, or let us know what you
And
like.
if you give us a 2, tell us what you don't like.
Tell us who you are.
Who you are. and
No
what you don't
anonymous
like.
twos.
Thanks, everyone.